Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulullah amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah, welcome back to the Arabic tryouts. And we are on Al-Yawm Al-Tasir, the 9th day of the tryouts. And alhamdulillah, we are going over the huruf al-hijaiyya, the Arabic alphabet. And we have reached up to the next two letters that we will cover, inshallah ta'ala, which will be 10 and 11 of the alphabets we covered so far. Alright, so the huruf al-hijaiyya, the Arabic alphabet, begins with the letter Aleph, and we already covered that. So we covered 9 letters so far. Aleph, Ba, Ta, Tha, Jim, Ha, Kha, Dal, Zal. So we're on our next 2 letters, which will bring us up to the 11th letter, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so these next 2 letters, they both come from the tongue, but not the same position. All right, so we're going to talk about that in these next 2 letters that we're going to cover. Okay. All right, the next 2 letters we're going to cover is Ra, right, and Zay. All right, Ra and Zay. And just as we see with the previous letters, they might share the same shape or the same form, but normally what distinguishes them is the dot. Okay, so notice how we learned with Ba, Ta, and Tha. They share the same form, but that which they use to differentiate them is the dots. So whenever you have this case, you need to focus on locking in which dot go where, the nuqt. All right, same thing when we look at Jim, Ha, Kha. Notice how Ha is distinguished between Jim and Kha because it doesn't have a dot at all. So you lock that in mind, know that it doesn't have a dot. Automatically, what word doesn't have a dot? When we look at these 3 forms, you're going to know it's Ha. All right, when we look at Dal and Zal, it have the same shape, but there's a dot. The one that the dot is on is what you're going to make sure you know it's Zal and it's not Dal. That's the same thing here. Ra and Zay has the same shape, the same form, but there's a dot on the Zay and there's not a dot on the Ra. All right, these are key things that will help you keep track of the letters. Another benefit of the letters that have the same forms is what? What do we learn? We learned that if there are letters that connect, then the forms that they have will take the same exact forms all across the board, meaning they will have a beginning, middle, and an ending form, which will be exactly the same. All right, like we learned in the case between Ba, Ta, and Tha, Jim, Ha, and Kha. All right? All right, so that will be that. Now, we also learned that there are letters that don't play well, which are the naughty letters. So far, out of the 9 letters we covered, we got 3 naughty letters. We're getting ready to learn 2 more. All right? We're getting ready to learn 2 more naughty letters that do not connect from the front, meaning they don't have a beginning form. So the naughty letters are Aleph, Dal, Zal, Ra, Zay. These are 5 letters, 6 in total. We haven't get to the 6th one yet, but these are 5 letters that do not connect from the front. All right, they don't connect from the front, so these are the letters that don't play well. All right, don't connect. The other letters, okay, the Ba to the Kha, they are connecting letters. So they have a beginning form, and they also have a middle form and an ending form. All right. So since we know that, let's look at some words. to distinguish a raw. First, where do raw come from? We mentioned 5 things to break down the 7 points of articulation. Okay? We mentioned al-jawf, the emptiness of the mouth to the what? Back of the throat. That's where we learn where our olive come from. All right? We mentioned al-lisan, and we said the lisan had how many letters? 10 altogether. So from the 9 letters, we had ta, tha, dal, and dal. So we have 4 letters that came from the lisan. These 2 letters here are going to come from the lisan, but I'm going to explain which part of the lisan that comes from the tongue. Okay, the lisan is the tongue. All right, so these other 2 letters fall under the tongue too. So that will bring us up to how many? Al-lisan, which is the tongue. We have ta, tha, dal, thou, ra, zay. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I mean we covered 6 letters in the tongue. That will leave 4 letters left remaining for the tongue that we talked about, right? Because we said lisan has 10. Okay. Now, the ra comes from the top of the tip of the tongue. And ra, when you say it, your top tip of your tongue is going to touch the top palate of your mouth, but closer to the 2 incisors, front incisors, okay? Raw, 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 okay? Remember the Arabs, they don't roll, they raw, okay? The people that normally speak Spanish, when, in Andalus, when they came into the deen, when they would speak, they roll their raws, rolling the raws, right? But the Arabs, you notice they don't roll their raws. It won't be a case of rolling raws. So it's raw and not raw. It's not raw, okay? It's the top tip of the tongue, and it's raw shares the same makhraj normally with the noon. And we didn't get to the noon yet, but we'll learn that as well later on in the letters, all right? So raw, 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 top tip of the tongue. That's where raw come from. All right, let's look at some words with raw. Okay, in this word we have, in the word rahimun, we see the raw here. The raw does not connect from the beginning, so we know it's not a connect. It's a naughty letter, as we explained, so it won't connect to this next letter. But we covered this next letter within our 9 letters we covered so far, and we learned that this letter here is a beginning what letter? It's a beginning ha. We learned that letter is beginning ha. Let's look at raw in another position. Okay, so we see raw from the back being connected. Okay, when it's connected from the back, how it look. That's the same thing you will see with the zay. When it's connected from the back, just be a dot on it. So you see here in this word, right? Harun, 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 right? In harun, which is hot, we see that the raw here is an ending raw. Okay, that's the ending raw. This letter here, we should already know what that is, because we already covered here. It is a beginning ha. Okay, it's a beginning ha. Now, okay, another example, another word. Ar-Rahmanu. Ar-Rahmanu, one of the names of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Ar-Rahman. We know that the Ra here, okay, Ar-Ra. It's not the beginning letter because we already have the Aleph Lam here, all right? Ar-Rahman. This Ha here, again, is a beginning Ha, all right? Now, let's look at some words with Zay, all right? One of the pillars of Islam is what? Right? Zakatun. Zakat, right? One of the pillars of Islam is zakat. Zay. Zay. Now, where do the Zay come from? We said it's a tongue letter. But which part? All right, so the Zay, right, also comes from up at the tip of the tongue, right? Between that top soft palate, the top palate, right? Near your two incisors. It's in between there. There are other two letters that's going to share the same point of articulation with Zay. And we're coming up on them soon. All right. But they have an inherent characteristic that it makes a certain sound when you say it correctly. And that is that whistling sound. All right. That whistling sound. It's normally there. Okay. And there are other two more letters that does the same thing. So when you say the Zay, right, you hear like a buzzing or whistle sound. All right. All right. Nazala. 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 Right. You hear that little whistling sound. So in zakat, all right, the name of the letter itself is called Zay. This is the name of the letter. All right. Not like how we learned with ba, ta, tha. All right. Some of the letters we learned have funny kind of names, but that's their names. All right. Don't get them confused when you start learning how to use the haraka. When you start learning how to use the vowel. Okay. The short vowel. Don't get it confused. All right. So we have Zay. So far we had Aleph. Funny name. That's the name. That's the name of it. We had Jeem. Right? And then we have Zay. Okay? These are the names. They're unlike the other names. We have Ba, Ta, Tha. It's simple, right? But with these names, it's different. And the reason why I'm saying that, because when you use the harakat with those vowels, you got to be careful. They might sound the same. All right? When we say Ba, we put a fatha on top of it, it's Ba. Right? But don't get it confused. It's because it sounds like its name is not that. You're still making the fatha there. So that's why I want you to, it's a little bit different. But with these names, it's kind of different. All right? Let's move on. So we have zakat. Because Zay is from the naughty letters, it does not connect. It doesn't have a beginning form. All right? It has an ending form, but not a beginning form. Nor does it have a middle form. So it doesn't play well. All right? Let's look at another word. And the word Azizun. Azizun. It's two Zays here. And they're both connected from behind. In other words, they're both ending Zay. All right? Azizun. Allah says in Quran that He is Huwal Azizul Hakim. He is Al-Aziz, which is one of the names of Allah Azza wa Jal. Azizun, without the Alif Lam, is not referring to Allah Jalla wa Ala. Okay? So, Azizun, we see two Zays here. Right? Another word we see that comes a lot in the Quran is the verb Nazala, meaning to send down, to reveal. Okay, Nazzala al-Quran. Allah revealed the Quran. He sent down the Quran. All right, Nazzala. We see the Zay here. Zay. It connects from behind, but not from the front. Okay, your homework, simple, simple, simple. We already know the drill. We're going to take the Ra, and we're going to write the Ra 25 times. Say it as we writing it. Raw, raw, raw. All right. And the zay, do the same thing. You want to take zay, write it down 25 times each. That's the first part of your homework. All right. The second part is applying it. How do we apply it? We did an example of that in yesterday's class. Go over to your mushaf, or if you have a mushaf, you have an all Arabic Quran, that's considered a mushaf. From the front to beginning is in all Arabic. That's a mushaf, okay? If you have a Quran that have English in it, then go to the Arabic section of that Quran and look for the words you learned today, the letters. Don't worry about the sound that the whole word makes. We're not there yet. Just identify the letters. All right? A lot of times when people learn or study, the teacher job or role is to give you the principles of the lesson, give you a simple format of how to understand the lesson, okay, and also structure. But when the teacher give you homework, the way that you can actually sharpen your skills and get it is that you lock down and do the actual homework. All right? And if you do it, trust me, it's going to work. It's simple. These letters are only 28 letters in total, right? I have a system where you can learn these 28 letters in 7 days, right? The next 7 days, I teach you the rest of the stuff to learn how to read. This is why I have a 14 days proof-driven program where I can teach you how to read and write in 2 weeks. All right, the Arabic language. But if you take your time with what we're doing now, because we're dragging it out just so that you can take each letters, you'll be able to get it, inshallah. All right, so that's what we was able to bring today. Stay tuned, inshallah ta'ala, for the 10th day, inshallah ta'ala, which will be Gadan. Tomorrow we will do the next 2 letters. Whenever the letters share the same form, we would do 2 of them at one time. But if the letter doesn't share the same form, we'll just do that 1 letter. All right? Whatever we said was incorrect. From Allah Jalla wa ala. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallah khair.